Hello, my name is Sandy Adamitis, the social media director for the Page International Screenwriting Awards, and your host for the Writers Hangout, a podcast that celebrates the many stages of writing, from inspiration to the first draft, revising, getting a project made, and everything in between. We'll talk to the best and the brightest in the entertainment industry and create a space where you can hang out, learn from the pros, and have fun. Hey writers, it's Sandy. I'm coming to you from Studio City, the crown jewel of the San Fernando Valley, and home to the now historical Brady Bunch house as of March 4th, 2026, when it was unanimously designated a Los Angeles historical cultural monument, protecting it from demolition. Sure, Jan. I had no idea how bad my Sure Jan was. Boy, do we have a great show for you today. My guest is Spade Robinson, an award-winning filmmaker, screenwriter, and story consultant who serves as the owner of the Atlanta Film Project, a boutique consulting firm that helps storytellers refine their scripts and projects. Spade is currently developing her first feature film titled Late Bloomers, which is set in America's Heartland. Writers, I really think you're going to like this episode because we discuss what a story consultant does, how Spade pulls the honesty out of the reluctant writer and teaches them to dig deeper for a better screenplay. Spade also shares 5 screenwriting tips, her favorite clients, including housewives who are screenwriters, how to master rejection, and Spade talks about the most democratic way a writer can change their life. Good stuff. Let's start the show. Spade Robinson, thank you so much for joining me on the Writers Hangout.
Yay, thank you for having me.
Are you up for a quick game of Would You Rather?
Absolutely.
Great. Now, would you rather find true love today or win the lottery next year?
Win the lottery next year.
Would you rather get a tattoo of the last book you read or the last movie you saw?
Book.
Would you rather be able to converse with animals or speak any language?
Speak any language, any day, any time.
Would you rather hop everywhere or skip everywhere?
Skip everywhere.
Would you rather spend a week in the forest or a night in a real haunted house?
Alex, give me forest for 300, please.
Would you rather walk to work in heels or drive to work in reverse?
Drive to work in reverse.
Me too. Would you rather be stranded on a desert island with somebody who won't stop talking about the television series Sister Sister or be alone?
Be alone.
Would you rather win $10,000 or your best friend win $100,000?
My best friend.
Last one. Would you rather be the funniest person in the room or the smartest person in the room?
Smartest person in the room.
There you go. Spade, can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yes. My name is Spade Robinson. I'm a story consultant and filmmaker, which basically means I help people get to the most compelling version of their story because it was hell learning how to get to the most compelling version of mine. And I work with people across the gamut. So on one side, I'm a film professor, so students who sort of have paid for the experience by way of their parents, and all the way to people who work one-on-one with me who are parents and pay for it themselves, and to the other end of the spectrum, which is studios, networks, and nonprofits who are supporting or hiring or cultivating artists, helping them either understand which artists they should pick for their cohorts, fellowships, labs, etc., which artists they should be hiring, or what is trending or bumbling up in terms of the zeitgeist for artists. So on the programming side, where I program film festivals, it's more about choosing a slate of projects that speak to what artists are grappling with right now.
Can you tell us what a story consultant does?
Yes. The official way to talk about it would be I help people who tell stories to tell the best version of that story by pulling out the most honest or brave part of them so they're prepared to tell that story. I think the layman's version of it is probably just therapy for storytellers. That's usually what it boils down to. And then when it comes to the room that I'm in with other people who are choosing artists that are going to be supported or funded or whatever, then I feel a lot more like an advocate, not just for storytellers individually, but storytelling overall. I feel protective of the field. I feel protective of our industry, and I feel just as protective of the field that I do of individual artists. So that may look like saying, no, I know it's not really on the page, but I can tell by the overall application that not only is this artist super talented and ambitious and doing the work, but they're also very generous and community driven. So investing in them is investing in 15 other people. As much as I can say that, I can also say this is not a script we should be supporting. I don't care how well it's written. It is something that is damaging to the field overall. And I feel equally as passionate about those things.
So I can come to you and, I could say, oh, this is a story. It's very close to my heart. It's about my mom. But there's not one scene where the protagonist and the mother are together. You would help that person find more of the honesty in their script, maybe something they're afraid to write.
90% of my job is helping people write what they're afraid to write. Writing a story about a relationship or a character who we rarely see, it could be about the residue of that relationship and how it impacts somebody else. Maybe that's the point of view about what you're telling the story. So I wouldn't necessarily say, okay, the way you're addressing it is wrong, unless the way you're addressing it is out of fear. And that's why almost every conversation becomes very personal very quickly. And I promise, I'll say this a million times, I'm really not trying to get in your business. I'm really not. But you brought it up by writing about it. So now we have to talk about it to make it better. And ultimately, writers want to write about things that they're grappling with that they don't understand or they haven't figured out or they feel are unfair, which is great. But when you kind of skirt around it, by saying, okay, I'm going to pull this character completely out of my demographic and completely out of my experience and completely out of my vocation so that I can really say the things that I want to say. Fair. Okay. I know this is what you have to do for the first draft to get it done. Now we need to go back to why you feel the need to cover all that up, because as much as your character got to say what they want to say, you left all the dimension out of the other person just because you're so angry with them and you haven't forgiven them, and now they're just like a stock character because you can't identify with them because you can't understand why they did what they did. So we have to unpack that for you to write great characters. Like, I'm not trying to shrink you, but I am trying to shrink the script. And in order for us to do the things you want to do for your career, you want to win awards, right? You want to get an Emmy, right? You want to get into Blue Cat, or you want to get into some screenwriting fellowship. Yeah, we're going to have to take the script through therapy.
Do you have to get tough with writers? Does a writer sometimes come to you and just refuse to hear anything you say? How do you deal with that writer?
I give them homework. If you are someone who's, for example, I was working with a writer recently who has this brilliant script, but I can always make it better, right? So if we're pushing it towards getting better, then I feel like I have to ask you certain deeper questions because you've conquered the structure, you've conquered the character development, you've conquered all the hard things, right? So now I'm going to push you a little bit further than you were willing to go to make this superior. And I had to ask about how much she identified with the main character. I don't identify with the main character at all. This character lived 30 years ago, blah, blah, blah. All this. I said, okay, I think you've planted this character who is doing these great deeds, has no flaws. So she's missing some dimension. And then she does this grand thing. And I need you to know, I don't need to know. I need you to know as a writer how she sees herself in doing this. Why is she really doing it? And I got so much pushback. Like, this person is in the medical field and they are saving lives and blah, 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 blah. You know, of course, that's why they're doing it. They have an oath and all that kind of stuff. So then I could push back with what's the point. What I would rather do is give them an exercise to help them peel back the layers of their character. Spoiler alert, peel back the layers of themselves. And it'll be some kind of exploratory writing exercises loosely attached to the story, but mostly I'm getting at what do they see when they look in the mirror, and are they in touch with why they do what they do? And if not, that's okay. That's a very human thing. It's very character driven thing for them not to be aware of why they're doing what they're doing. But you as a writer have to know. So let me ask you some questions about research. And can you tell me about how you felt when you came across them? And can you tell me about like if you feel like they made you feel better about this, or what hidden thing that you're also hiding, right? That's what an exercise could be getting at. And she came back the next day and she was crying and talking about how desperate she's often been to see herself as this person, as this kind of person, a good person, a part of the community, a philanthropic person, a helpful person. And it is very hurtful to think that there's some kind of ulterior motive because they never want to believe that about themselves. And I was like, well, you're not going to be able to write the character who is a true human being if you can't reach that place. You can't hold place for you to have contradiction yourself, because then you won't feel comfortable feeling good about a character or feeling like they're deserving of being at the center while embodying contradiction. When you start to accept what is contradictory about you, you can still have pleasure and appreciation for someone and allow them to be, dimensional and flawed and have bad intentions sometimes or selfish intentions sometimes, and them still be deserving of everything that you're giving them in the story. And that's usually the kind of pushback I'll have past a certain point. The kind of pushback I have that where writers aren't quite operating at that level has a lot to do with structure. I'm not married to any structure, and I'm not someone who will tell students, you have to be married to the classic 3-act structure, but I will teach you the 3-act structure, and I will expect for you to write in it, and I will grade you on your ability to write in it. And then when it comes, because that's the assignment, right? And then when it comes to any form that you like, you don't have to capitalize a word if you don't want to, except you need to be able to explain to me the meaningfulness of these things. So remember when we were like in 4th grade and we were all learning to write poetry, and the teacher was like, well, you don't have to use apostrophes here. You can do whatever you want with the form. We're like, yay, we're free from formatting. But the truth is, the further you get in writing, like, let's say if you do go into poetry, all of these tools, right? Words or tools, they all have different jobs and different meaningfulness. So if you decide I want to have no capital words or no punctuation, you're giving me a story without a breath. There's a momentum that you're creating with the cadence of these words having no punctuation. There should be some meaningfulness to that. And if you are not interested in that being the way it's read or consumed, then you need to go back in and write with punctuation so I can consume it the way you meant for it to be consumed. So a lot of screenwriters feel like, well, I'm an artist, I'm a genius, I don't believe in structure.
But if you're working for a studio, they would like you to know the 3-act structure.
You have to. It's mandatory. And the thing is, if you want to, and big studio films break the structure all the time for a reason, right? So if I say I'm going to have a much shorter second act, I'm going to elongate the first act because I really have to plant all these things on a payoff later, and they pay off so quickly and they're so satisfying. I don't need a full third act to do that. I prefer, and trust me, I'm going to maintain the momentum in the first act so you don't get bored, right? So the two sides of the coin are that you want to understand how you're manipulating this structure, and there should be a creative reason why you're manipulating the structure in the way that you are. And the flip side of that coin is you have to make up for the fact that you changed something that works. So if you're saying, okay, I'm going to throw caution to the wind, then my question is for you, that's fine. You're the artist. Do what you want. How are you making up for the fact that you still need tension, momentum, world building, character development? How are you infusing the story with that if you're taking it out of the structure?
What do you say to writers who are writing a personal script, but they're stuck on the mundane?
I would have them revisit the timeline of their story. So remember in our like social studies books where they had these timelines where they would tell us like the history of a country or a period of time, and it would be like a long horizontal line, these vertical lines in between, and it would say in 1940 whatever, such and such and such. Then a few years later, such and such ran for whatever, right? Well, over the course of your story, more importantly, your character's life is a long timeline. The day they were born, all the way to the day they died, and all of these events in between. A lot of times we don't know how to slide that timeline up and down to tell the most compelling version of the story. So if I say, okay, out of your whole life, I'm giving you 90 minutes to tell a compelling story. Our knee-jerk reaction as human beings who like haven't built that muscle yet to when people on TV pretend they have a gaydar and they're looking around them. Well, like we have sort of that fine-tuned radar for like a compelling story because we know it's going to take high stakes and it's going to take conflict and it's going to take nuanced relationships. And because we know all the ingredients, we can really clearly see with the laser where the most compelling story is along the timeline. When you're earlier on, it's your nature to start things at the beginning. So you would think the beginning is the beginning of the day and or the beginning of a thing, the party, the whatever. And the truth is, it's just a muscle. So when you give yourself permission to take those shackles off or take that nature off and start to get that muscle memory of figuring out narratively what's the beginning.
You are an advocate for mastering rejection. Can you speak to the
Yes.
writers out there who might have had their last script rejected and they're just feeling it's not worth it? It's sad. They're taking it very personal. I mean, they put a lot of work in it.
Oh man, I have so many different answers to this question. The broad answer is that mastering rejection is a muscle, just like the muscle of understanding narrative, right? It's not necessarily about starting at the beginning, but it's about knowing what are the ingredients of an exciting incident, what are the ingredients of a climax, so then I know it when I see it, right? And then I start where the story starts because I know it now when I see it. It's the same thing with rejection in that if you can contextualize rejection, it is less personal and painful because you know what it means. Something generic can be very painful. Like in a general, no, I don't want you on your script. That could be painful. But when you have the context of, okay, so this is an open call for this fellowship. 40,000 people applied to this. I made it to the semifinalist round. After that, there were only 60 people. Now I understand because I'm tracking this in a specific way where I'm following a trajectory as opposed to making the assumption that my genius is going to take me where I need to go. I'm following a certain trajectory and I'm less entitled and more curious about where my work stands. When I feel like I should be getting into all this stuff, why am I not getting in? Then there's a brick wall there and there's nothing you can do but run into it. But if I'm curious and I'm wondering, okay, where does my work stand as opposed to me by myself deciding that it should be there? Oh, okay. So I'm applying and I'm getting a rejection letter quite early in the process, and I haven't been called in for an interview or anything like that. So really, it's not making it past the top 80%. And I tell people all the time, 80% of everything I read is terrible, god awful, wish I never read it. And then after that, that top 20% is where you're competitive. So that should be good news for strong writers that you're really only competing against 20% at any given time. And once you make it to that 20%, you know 10% is pretty good. And that top 10% is where you want to live, which is there's 5% that's great and then 5% that's superior. And so if you want to make all the way to that top 5%, like anything else, you're usually not going to start there because getting there isn't really just about something being great, like a great script. You're thinking about multiple things. So if you're still in that big 80%, you need to write a better script. The script is not great. Past that, then there's several other things that you're dealing with. Past that, then it's like, okay, you need to fine tune it. If you're in that next top 10%, you're not pushing to the top 10%. And that usually has something to do with that sort of crispiness at the top. Like the writer's voice is a lot stronger here. The world building is distinctive and specific. The character development is nuanced and complex. Okay, so now we're talking about that top 10% once you punch past that. And then after that, it's really not up to you. You're trying to get into a fellowship or a lab or a contest or whatever. If you're in that top 10% of scripts where people are calling you in for an interview and saying, you made it to the interview stage or whatever, you're a finalist, we'd love to talk to you. You have essentially done everything you could to get into the program and you got there. After that, what the executives on the other side are negotiating have very little to do with the work. It has more to do with how do I create a cohort of people that makes sense for not only each other, but what this program is built to accomplish. So if I have a program that I have built with the resources, the grant money that I got, and the people in the industry that have access to be mentors, it's really built for early career writers because it's mentorship driven and it's about giving people the ability to push their scripts forward and all of that. Then if I have an amazing, amazing, amazing script, but this person has already made 3 features, they don't make sense for this program. Or I have someone who it's their first script and it's amazing, 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 but everybody else in the cohort has a chunkier experience and they're on the brink of something. Like let's say if it's TV and they have an amazing pilot, but they've already been in a writer's room as a support staff, they're a writer's assistant, a script supervisor,
Right.
something like that, then I know that if I put them through my program, they're going to be able to take better advantage of the tools of the program because they know how a room operates and they are hireable immediately. Whereas this other person with this wonderful pilot has no room experience straight out of school, I can't just put them into a room no matter how great their pilot is because there's a certain etiquette that goes along with being in a writer's room. There's a certain protocol. And I need people who are like ready to go because that's how I built the program. Think when you sort of have a really strong understanding of the industry overall and you're self-aware and honest with yourself about where your work stacks up, then you take it a lot less personally because either it's just not ready and you need to go back to the lab and keep writing, or it's great and you just need to keep applying because you're already there and it's not personal. It's just they needed 15 people and you're the 16th person and you have no other experience, or they needed 15 people and you're the 16th person and you have too much experience, or you're too far along in your career, or you're not far enough, or this is really built for a mentorship and you've already had extensive mentorship and what you really need now is something completely different. You need an agent now. And we don't do that here.
What I'm taking away from it is responsibility for your writing, for where you're submitting, that the more you know, and you won't take it all so personally. And even if it's something as I'm entering a horror contest with my romantic comedy, how dare they reject me? You're right. You've just really got to be aware and that it takes steps. It's not like a regular job that you just put in the hours and then hopefully in a year you'll get a promotion. Writers' knowledge is power.
Yeah, knowledge of the industry and the business is power. I try and talk about that as much as humanly possible because I spent so long as an arrogant asshole. And I was that person for a long time.
Oh, talking to you right now, I can't even ever imagine that.
We get so like, I deserve to be here. Oh, no, 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 no. That's not the math of the
Um,
situation.
what is a film grant and can anyone get one, or the programs that you're talking about?
Yes. A film grant is, in layman's terms, money for your movie that you don't have to pay back. There, like, unlike an investment, right? There may be some deliverables, like there may be some reporting if you get a grant from a nonprofit or a family organization. Then they may ask, okay, well, we funded your social issue documentary. Can you report back to us like how much social change you created or whatever, or how many people came to see the movie, or how long it took you to make it or something like that. So sometimes there's reporting, sometimes they're not, depending on the scope of the movie and the organization.
Do I just Google that as a writer and look for film grants? Do you have to be in school?
So they're all different and all have different requirements. Some of them are for students. It's rare though. The student ones are rare, especially if they're not through the college or university. Most are for emerging to professional writers or filmmakers. And can anybody get them? Yes and no. Only no because of some stipulations. It may be a grant for US based filmmakers between the ages of 19 to 24. So, for example, the Kim Burns Film Grant, I think it just closed recently. They're looking to get young people into documentary. So, the film grant was for people like, I don't know, 19 and 23 or something like that, because that's the mandate of that organization. Every one of them have a mandate. And to your point about applying for a horror script grant or fellowship with the romantic comedy, too much of that happens with film grants where all of the stipulations, the mandates, and the organization's mission is usually on the website. And even something as simple as going to the website and figuring out what they're looking for can save you a lot of time, money, and stress, because with some of these, you do have to pay an application fee.
Would you recommend that writers go for fellowships, screenwriting competitions, film grants? Is that an avenue that you support?
Absolutely. It's the most democratic way to change your life. Now, democratic does mean incredibly competitive. So I advocate for people budgeting a certain amount of money at the top of the year for how much they're going to spend on applications and try to stick to that. And the smaller the number, the more judicious you have to be about what you're applying to. So you're really spending time on those websites to figure out what they're looking for. Because it's not just about genre or the types of projects, but it's also about career stage. A lot of them will say we are supporting early stage careers, we're starting mid, late stage. People
Right.
get really specific about what they're looking for. And unfortunately, of course, you get like 50% of your applications that are not even eligible. So I would say budget so you don't go out of budget. Oh, this came up. Oh, this came up. Oh, this came up. A lot of organizations and companies will have a calendar for all of the grants in the next calendar year from all the different organizations all over the world. And you can see, okay, I'm not eligible for this one. I don't live in, Quebecistan, but I am from India. There is one specific for Indian filmmakers and screenwriters, but you have to be between this age. Okay, so I'm not eligible for that one.
I think that's a great tip because things do pop up. And you also don't want to be chasing grants and forgetting about your own voice and your own writing. And don't write a whole horror script if you hate horror just because you found out that this grant is easy to win or something like that. What advice do you have for writers who say that they're scared to write the truth? What if I hurt my mother, boyfriend, teacher? I can't make the villain a gym teacher because my gym teacher will find out.
I would say the most important thing is your safety. So if you are in a dangerous situation, like you live with the person who's abusing you, and something like a writing contest at school that will end up in the newspaper will cover it, I would say do what is safe. Outside of that, and this could be controversial, but that feeling is common and universal, and all of us sort of feel protective of people who have hurt us. Because of our emotional safety, if nothing else, you don't want to cause tension where there's already been like a breach of safety, and B, because shame. And that's the part that we don't always dismantle when we're making these decisions. We don't always investigate, is it as much as I don't want to bring shame to someone else, or is it as just as much, if not more, that I feel shame that I allowed this, I feel shame that this happened to me, I feel shame that I know somebody who, am I worried that putting that out there will make them look bad and therefore make me look like a snitch, or therefore make me feel like a spotlight is on something negative that happened to me? There's no way, I think, to be the brilliant writer that a lot of people are aiming to be without addressing these kinds of things off the page. Because you need access to what the truth is in order to write about it. And sometimes the truth is buried under another one, which is buried under another one, which is buried under another one. So I'll give you a real quick example. I have all of my clients do a story statement for all of their projects, especially if it's a feature script. It's a question that I believe every good story asks. This is a story of this person, this character who wants this thing, this tangible want. Will they be successful, or will their internal obstacle prove too difficult? Well, we always know the character's name, Billy, Bob, Sue, whoever. But when it comes to the tangible want, that's sometimes a challenge, but the bigger challenge is often the internal obstacle. What is the internal thing that your character is managing? Not the external, like the big monster that's trying to kill everybody, or the alcoholic grandmother who beat you. Beyond, outside of your body, there's something internal that's holding you back from the thing that you want, just like in real life. And usually we'll start off with something sort of on the surface, like this person has low self-worth. Okay, great. Now, what is underneath that low self-worth? What's vibrating underneath that surface? Is it like a shame-based thing? Is it there's been a breach of sort of innocence? What is the thing underneath that has created this low self-worth that creates obstacle for this character? I know this is like a little bit of a word salad, but I think in the scenario that you described, okay, my father, who was a great dad in some ways, but also abusive in these like really tiny, small ways that I couldn't really quantify or find language for. But the older I get, the more I realize like how insidious and harmful it was. And I don't want to write about it because I want to maintain this relationship. Okay. So there's a few questions we have to ask, which is, barring everything else, are you being honest about this relationship? Or do you have to be dishonest to maintain connection? Because if you tell me that, then I can say, what do you want more than anything? I want to maintain connection. Okay, great. So this is how we're going to address it on the page. We're going to give your main character perspective that she doesn't know is happening. And these things on the surface come off as like funny or light. We're going to put them all in jokes. And only people who are perceptive enough when they watch it are going to be like, wait, what did he say? But the people who already feel like this is okay are just going to laugh. And then that's how you get to say what you want to say. But it's very difficult to get to that place, and coming up with a strategy for how to get you to the most compelling version of your story if we don't talk about the truth about what happened, what you're really grappling with, and then what do you want now?
It's the difference between, this is a good script. Maybe I'll keep them in mind for staffing someday, or I got to make this movie.
Yeah.
On TikTok, you're known as the writer's whisperer. Cool name. What are your top 5 screenwriting tips?
Structure, character development, and emotional bravery. You should feel structure in your body, like in your bone. It should be like muscle memory. Because you should know around page 14 this should be happening. You should know, and you know if you going outside of that, your body goes, like I have a Toyota. And when I'm like driving outside the lane a little bit, it'll like nudge me back in, you know? So your body will start to do that when you're like, all right, we're at page 20 and we haven't even left the city yet. What is happening? This is a road trip movie. So that'll keep you in line. And then when it comes to the next thing I would say, when it comes to structure, is just having a good idea of how something should be arcing and developing, right? So I should understand not just what should be happening at a certain time, but emotionally, I should feel like this is the best things could ever get right here. And then by this sort of page range, I should feel like all is lost and is desperate and there's no opportunity. And by here, I should feel satisfied and surprised. And then I would say the last thing with structure is just thinking of character in the same way. So that usually there's some kind of character change, not always. But if you are writing something where there is some kind of character change, then I should feel that, right? I should feel this person looking and navigating a place where this is the first time they've been like, all right, okay, enough is enough. I have to make some changes here. And I should, or if they're going to double down, I should feel that place where the character is like, absolutely not. And then on top of that, I would say character development is the heart, I think, of every screenplay. Human beings are looking to experience seeing themselves, and B, seeing the human experience reflected back to them. Watching a person have that experience and undergo that journey is built in structure. It's not really built in the emotional, mushy part of like, oh, I wrote 2 pages of backstory for this person. It's great. I'm never going to see any of that though on screen. So I assign people right backstory all the time, but what holds a movie together emotionally is structure. And so character development on top of that just sweetens that, which is adding dimension to all the people. And that includes making sure that the relationships have enough dynamic. So it's not just about Billy having a 3 dimensional character write up and Sam having the same treatment, but it's about these two brothers who have a nuanced way of communicating and dealing with each other that is going to show up on screen. And then on top of that, I would have to say emotional bravery on the part of the writer, which is this is hard or painful or it gives me anxiety or whatever the uncomfortable piece is internally associated with what it is that you're writing. You being brave and writing despite of that is sort of how I would build advice for writers.
So that's structure. That was 3, right?
Structure,
Oh, I see. So 3 structures
right?
and then character development. And I'm sorry, what was the last one?
Emotional bravery.
Emotional bravery. I couldn't remember emotional bravery after we talked about it for a half hour up at the top. While I was watching your TikTok tutorials, you often reach out to people who are underappreciated in filmmaking. What advice would you have for, say, a housewife screenwriter?
So housewives are definitely my favorite clients. And it's because they have time to write. And because I would say it's somewhere between housewives and like people who like work very non-film related jobs, but they like find a way to get it in. Housewives are in an interesting position where they have time to write. They've experienced quite a bit of life. And the things that they want to write about are usually so subtle. The themes are so subtle and interesting. I can't tell you how many clients I've had where they have this life with this like white picket fence, and the stuff they want to talk about are like these tiny little threads that sort of run through their lives that are unnerving and really hidden eh, because there's just like unspoken agreements. There's like multiple unspoken agreements within their communities that we don't talk about. And so when they end up on the page, I'm like, okay, girl, you sure you want to say that? And it's always so much fun. There's so much passion because a lot of times there's so much of their life that they've given up happily to support and raise their families. And this is sometimes the first thing that they're doing for themselves that they've always wanted to do. And like, do you think I can have a career? Yes, girl. Yes. Let's get you there. So that is specifically about them. But to more broadly answer your question, my advice for writers who feel as though they don't fit into the picture of what they've seen a screenwriter be, which is like some young dude with a beard, you have to realize that everything you know about what that kind of person looks and feels and smells like is made up. The whole idea that you're like, yeah, but I'm not, whatever, fill in the blank for whatever that is, somebody made that up. And
Absolutely.
across the board, if everyone were given the exact same opportunities, the wide range of people you would see in our industry would just be, a wider range.
Wouldn't that be nice?
It would change the world because there are voices that are missing in this. So when we were at Sundance, my boss used to ask this all the time. When we were deciding if are we going to fund this film, we have $20,000 left. Is this what we're doing with it? Is this what we're hanging? Is this the one we're hanging our hat on? And especially if it's about a topic that's been explored multiple times or is being explored a lot. My boss would say, okay, so if aliens were, and this is before we knew what we know now, she would say, if aliens were to come down to Earth and only understand humanity by watching movies, is this the movie we would have them to watch about this topic?
That is a big question.
And the truth is, babies are aliens. They haven't been here before.
Right.
So when they show up and they learn how to be in the world by way of watching movies, which by the way is how human beings learn how to be in the world. It's multifaceted. It's not just movies, but it's a huge part of that. We learn when we're kids, we learn how to be grown-ups, like what's cool, smoking cigarettes and like putting on lipstick and talking to boys. Like you're like
Yep.
11, you're like, yeah, that's what I'm gonna be like. So we learned so much about how to be, how to act. I had this assignment when my first year in film school. My professor asked like us to go home and make a list of things we learned from watching movies. I was appalled by what I learned from watching movies because I was like, oh, I learned the perfect moment to lean in for a kiss. I learned that from watching movies, and then the list started to get dark. Like I learned that men are inherently flawed and it's women's jobs to forgive them because that's all you see in movies.
Yes.
Boy meets girl, boy screws up royally, and then he puts a boombox on his head, and certainly everything's okay. Not addressing the thing he did, just the boombox on his head. And that's everything we learn about romance. Is he's gonna screw up, it's my job to forgive him.
I would love to have you back on and let's just talk about 5 movies each and what we learned in life. And did it work for us? I think that would be so much fun to do.
Oh my
But
gosh,
you're
I
right.
would love that. To your point about like aliens coming to Earth and learning about humanity and how to be and how we are by watching movies, I think as people are coming up, they are those people and they learn how to be. So if we had a field that was so inclusive that every kind of voice was represented, everybody had the ability to tell stories and put it out there and get an audience that people would see it, our understanding of the human experience would be wildly different.
I agree 100%. Spade, you have shared so much of your knowledge. I really appreciate it. How can our writers contact or follow you?
If you are looking to just get some screenwriting tips and things like that, you can find me on TikTok. My handle on TikTok is Atlanta Film Project. And you can go there and I talk about screenwriting and film business and all of that. And if you'd like to work with me one-on-one, you can go to atlantafilmproject.com and click on Work with Spade. And then just book some time on my calendar, depending on what you need, read a script, watch a cut of your documentary, etc. And you'll have me locked in.
Thank you so much for being on the Writers Hangout.
Thank you for having me. This is so fun.
Yay.
And that's a wrap for the Writers Hangout. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Your positive feedback will help us keep the show going so we can continue bringing you more future episodes. Remember, keep writing. The world needs your stories. The Writers Hangout is sponsored by the Page International Screenwriting Awards, with executive producer Kristin Overn, Sandy Adamitis, and our music is composed by Ethan Stoller.
Alexa, you are gaslighting me.
This is so fun.
Yay.